Picture this, if you will. You load into a game of TF2 like you always do. After leaving the spawn room on upward for the billionth time, you see the usual kinds of players. To your left, two pyros wearing a Team Spirit painted head prize, who's dancing near several hoovies constantly yelling for a dispenser while eating sandwiches. To your right, a soldier medic duo, both with crazy looking unusuals and casually destroying the enemy team with a Kritzkrieg and Australian rocket launcher for with 8,000 kills and counting. And after you turn around, you see one more person. He's, not something I can say easily without getting in trouble on YouTube, but let's just say he's not a very swell person. You know, just the usual in your favorite video game. But have you ever stopped and asked yourself, why? Why does it feel like you can find nearly anyone from anywhere at any time in this game, for better or for worse? Why are there so many furries and LGBTQ plus people bunched in with some of the most toxic, bigoted morons you've ever had the displeasure of talking to? If you ever asked yourself these questions, you're not alone. It's something I've been thinking about for a long time now, and up until recently, I never really could come up with any defined answer. Heck, even after coming up with an answer, it's still pretty convoluted for me to explain. Hopefully this video will give you some insights on the people who play this game, and why it seems to have such a colorful cast of characters. Before we start though, I probably shouldn't have to clarify, but I don't mean any ill will towards any of the people that I'll be going over. You know, except for the obvious. Frankly, I think the diversity in this game's community is something to be celebrated rather than chastised. Even after almost 20 years of the game being released, and almost 10 years after the last major update, the fact that TF2 still has this wide variety of gamers is really something special, and I'd like this video to be a somewhat comprehensive explanation as to why it's the case, rather than why it shouldn't be the case, if that makes sense. To begin, I'd like to cover a part of the community I myself am very involved in, furries and LGBTQ plus folk. I think one of the main reasons why they're seemingly so common is actually something you may not have thought about. Cosmetics. TF2 and hats are pretty much one and the same at this point, and while there has recently been some discourse going around it, I'd like to instead talk about some of the good parts of it, namely the sheer variety. At the time of writing, there are just less than 2,000 unique cosmetics in the game, and by the way things are going, that number is only going to be increasing as time goes on. Within this large catalog of cosmetics lies some of the widest range of themes and personality I've seen in pretty much any video game ever. This sheer variety means you're able to express yourself regardless of who you are or what you're into, especially since you can mix and match these cosmetics as you please, with surprisingly very few restrictions. Seriously, the only thing stopping you from making literally whatever you want are slot conflictions, the limited 3 slots per loadout, and holiday restrictions. Other than that, you can do basically whatever. Do you like over-the-top military soldiers or stealth agents? Well, you can make your soldier look like something like that. Want to run around as an intern with a robotic arm? You can do that. Are you interested in role-playing as an old, grizzled hunter who opts to use a bow and arrow instead of a sniper rifle? Sure, why not? But why bring this up at all in regards to the topic at hand? Well, I'd like to think the ability to carefully customize the 9 classes to your own liking allows you to, simply put, express yourself. You're able to show everyone else in the server what you like and the kind of person you might be. And especially considering what's been going on to LGBTQ plus people in the real world, I think that's, as cheesy as it may sound, kind of beautiful in a weird meta way, I guess. Although, ironically enough, one community that doesn't get much representation when it comes to cosmetics that are added to the game are actually furries. These poor guys have had so little to work with for years, which is definitely the main reason why seemingly all of them use either the head prize or the flame deer. They don't really have much else, which is a shame. You guys deserve better. Friendlies. You know them, you probably don't care for them, and if you do, you probably don't like them. But why do they seem to be so prevalent in a PvP game like TF2? What makes this game different from anything else, where the concept of being friendly is more so associated with just briefing games? If you ask me, the biggest factors have to deal with the very unique way you can interact with everyone in a match, regardless of whether or not you're in the same teams as them. A lot of the game's taunts allow you to interact with the server, whether that be through dancing, playing rock, paper, scissors, or snapping their neck. You know, friendly stuff. And that's not to mention things like the wide variety of voice commands that are relayed to both teams. This level of interactivity between two opposing teams is something completely unique to TF2, which is just another reason why the game has stayed so timeless for so long, as well as why friendlies as a concept are able to just exist at all. I really can't think of any other game in a remotely similar genre where you can do something to the same extent as this. And regardless of your stance on people who'd rather just eat sandwiches and high-five each other, I hope we can all agree that this is a one-of-a-kind thing that you can only really get out of TF2. Do it anywhere else, and you'll probably just get kicked for griefing. Well, that can still happen in TF2, but you get the point. Moving on to the big boys of the block, the veterans who spend thousands of hours in the game to learn everything about it and its mechanics. Honestly, the main question I had for these people were, how has the game managed to keep such a dedicated player base, some of which has spent an ungodly amount of time perfecting their skills? Why spend so much time on a decade-and-a-half old game that barely gets any updates nowadays, when newer, more updated, and arguably better games exist in a similar genre? What makes these people want to stick around? Honestly, this question in general is fascinating to me, and I'd like to make a video covering it more in detail in the future, but the main answer I have is simple. TF2 really isn't like anything else. I know I just said this before, but I really can't stress enough how incredibly unique this game is compared to its contemporaries, especially when it comes to the actual gameplay. Sure, other games may have more characters, game modes, and actual updates from the developers, but at the end of the day, they don't have any of the smaller intricacies of TF2, like the blast jumping, the way you can interact with teammates and enemies alike, the crazy concept of weapons, the cosmetics, and, well, you get the point. I don't want to come off as a kind of extremist who's always spouting shit like Overwatch bad, TF2 good, or whatever, because I do enjoy all these games. I'm just relating the possible reason why so many people, not just the hardcore fans, are still playing the game to this day. One could even say that TF2 is a timeless masterpiece, and that's gonna wrap up the video. Thank you for watching, do the usual subscribe stuff, yada yada, etc, etc. Oh boy. Nazis. Okay, I think it's about time to talk about the elephant in the room. And by elephant, I mean the shut-in NEET who tries to defend Bill Gaither in every toxic MVM video he features in. Why does it feel like so many people in this community are bigoted assholes who only want to make everyone else's lives hell? Well, that's obviously a pretty open-ended question, but I think the biggest answer is the fact that they're not really facing any consequences for it. Of course, they do get universally mocked by people with common sense, but it's not like they're ever being legitimately punished by Valve for it. Valve hasn't been doing any actual moderation for the game outside of cheaters for years at this point. You can say some vile crap in VC or text chat, and while that would be grounds for an immediate permaban in any other game, TF2 doesn't have any kind of measures like that. Or if they did, they haven't been working for who knows how long. Sure, you can chastise them all you want, but condemning them for being a fragrant racist alone isn't going to stop them if they don't care. Although, I don't want this to make you think a good majority of the community's population are open racists. The truth is, these people are very few and far between. It's just that negativity bias makes it seem like they're a lot more mainstream than in actuality. Although, I think there's another big reason why they're so open about the fact that, they're racist. Good chance these people know a good number of the community are part of or support the minority they're so openly against, and they get the rocks off by agitating them. They know people tend to be vocal whenever someone makes a stupid take. I mean, just look at something like Twitter where you can literally get paid for making intentional bait. God, that change was awful. If you ask me, if there's someone being a jerk in the game in any way, good chance they're just trying to get a reaction out of you. Best thing to do that I learned is either treat them like they literally don't exist, or vote to get them booted from the lobby. Your time is too valuable to give to people who only want to hurt others. Just ignore them and move on. Okay, that's actually the end of the video. I know I wasn't able to cover every kind of person, but with a community that's so diverse and widespread, I think I did as well as I could. I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts though, especially when it comes to creeps I didn't mention. As always, let me know what you think in the comments below. This video was a lot shorter than the ones I usually make, but I still have a few longer, open-ended ideas related to TF2 since I've been in the mood for the game lately, as well as some other ones not related to the game. So whether you're interested in TF2 or not, feel free to subscribe for whenever I get a new video out. God knows when that'll happen at this rate. I still don't know how to properly end these videos, so thanks for watching. Do the usual YouTuber stuff if you enjoy the video, and until next time.